Breaking development coming in. This is a big development in the Rafale case. The government has filed its affidavit in the Supreme Court of India, and the affidavit says that all procurement process has been followed in the Rafale deal. Remember, Republic TV was the first to report on the Rafale developments that all necessary legally binding exercises were conducted by the government as per the protocol. And again, the government has filed this affidavit in the Supreme Court of India, which says that all procurement processes legally were abided by and followed in the Rafale deal. We'll be getting our political editor Aishwarya Kapoor and our legal correspondent Nalini Sharma to fill us in with the latest on this big Rafale development. But remember, there's been a massive controversy surrounding the Rafale deal, with the opposition gunning for the government. There were several protests organized in press conferences by the Congress party as well. Rahul Gandhi, in particularly, the Congress president, has been mounting an attack against the current government, and particularly the Raksha Mantri Nirmala Sitharaman as well. So Republic TV reporting first on these exclusive details, and now Republic TV has exclusively accessed the response of the government, the affidavit to the Supreme Court of India. Joining me live from the Mumbai newsroom is my colleague Niranjan Narayan Swamy. Niranjan, take us through the salient features of this response, which clearly says that all procurement processes were followed. What does this response, the exclusive copy which Republic has, say?
Yeah, Aditya, what I'm going to do is I'm going to read the entire, this is the operative part of government's affidavit that was filed in the Supreme Court. Republic accessing the first copy. First copy out on Republic. The operative part is here. I'm going to read out from it. The decision-making process. So the government has laid out the decision-making process. I'm going to underline the important portions. Decision-making process has been followed in the acquisition of 36 Rafale aircraft. In the case for procurement of 36 Rafale aircraft, all the requisite steps, that is preparation of services quality requirements or SQR, acceptance of necessity AON by Defence Acquisition Council, technical evaluation and acceptance of technically qualified platform, commercial negotiations by Contract Negotiation Committee, and approval of competent financial authority CFA as per requirement of Defence Procurement Procedure 2013 have been followed, which is explained in the subsequent paragraphs. So the government has laid down, government shows the opposition the rule book saying that, you know, what was laid down as procedure in 2013, Defence Procurement Procedure 2013 has been followed, explained in the subsequent paragraphs. I'm going to read out from the subsequent paragraphs so that, we can tell our viewers about what the government has said. Acquisition process for MMRCA had reached commercial evaluation stage after completion of all the standard processes as per DPP. As stipulated in the Defence Procurement Procedure, approval of the Defence Acquisition Council for procurement of 36 flyaway Rafale aircraft from the French government through intergovernmental agreement was taken on 13 May 2015. The background of the case was brought to the notice of the DAC, where it was mentioned that operational capability of 36 Rafale aircraft will be in accordance with the SQR for the procurement of MMRCA. It was further brought to the notice of the DAC that 36 Rafale aircraft will equip 2 squadrons and operate from 2 operating bases. So essentially, this is the operative part, and I can confirm to you that that government has now submitted it, and as we speak, we're trying to get the full copy. But this is the operative part. I think Aishwarya is also joining us live. Aditya, let's go across to Aishwarya. Aishwarya, as we zoom out of this and tell our viewers about the government response on Rafale, let's also tell our viewers about Aishwarya, the government showing the rule book to the opposition, saying you laid down the procedures in 2013.
Right, Niranjan.
All we have done is follow it.
Niranjan, this is the technical reply of the government back to the Apex Court regarding the process followed in the Rafale deal. So very clearly, government is very significantly technical and clear. And as you've just said, it says that according to the MMRCA, and it quotes that it's accordance to the DPP, that is the Defence Procurement Procedure 2013. Also, it said simultaneously in the same sentence that approval of the Defence Acquisition Council, that is DAC, was done. So all of those counters which were coming in from the opposition that the process was not followed, this is the reply of the government back to the Apex Court in the procurement deal of the Rafale aircrafts, that not only one but multiple checks were there in place and the government followed the complete procedure. That first it was according to the DPP 2013, and then it also went through the DAC, and these were 2 points on which the complete opposition was raising a big question mark on this whole procurement process. And this is just not a written reply of the government in a press conference. This is a reply back to the apex court. So it's technically very significant. And as you just read that second paragraph, that is point number 23. It's a 9-page affidavit, Niranjan, and it's page number 7 out of which we are just quoting. These 2 points are the operative part, but it's a 9-page reply which has been given in by the Government of India back to the apex court, and we are reading out of point number 22 and 23 out of page number 7. So very clearly, government has given a detailed reply back to the apex court, which also gives an adequate amount of reply and information back to the opposition and to their councils, because they were very specific. They wanted all of these details. They were raising questions whether the process was followed or not. And the government says we not only followed DPP 2013, we also went through the DAC. So what are the queries which you still have? We went through the procedure which is listed in black and white in the procurement of these 36 Rafale aircrafts, Niranjan.
Okay, we have some breaking news. In fact,
and
as
it's a
we speak,
9-page reply,
also,
as we just said.
Nalini's also accessed the full copy of the affidavit, and there's some breaking news. In fact, I can confirm to you, beg your pardon, that the government has dedicated a full paragraph to offsets. 2 pages dedicated to offsets. In fact, 3 pages, 5 pages. I'm reading it in all 5 pages dedicated to offsets and the controversy around offsets. Let's try and get Nalini live. But I think I'm going to read out from it. But as we speak, I want you to Aishwarya, tell our viewers once again about this response while I pull up the response on offsets particularly.
Absolutely. Look, Niranjan, government understands the kind of questions which were being raised by the complete opposition and also few of their own leaders. So this is something which the government understood that can really boomerang. So the questions which were being raised by the Congress National President, all of those counters today fall flat, because what government is doing, Niranjan, is not only dedicating 2 pages to the offset part, they're also clarifying that the complete process was followed. Whether it's in relation to the offsets, whether it is in relation to the different committees formed within the government, whether it is in relation to the process which needs to be followed in every defense procurement. They are stating that the Narendra Modi government in the procurement of 36 Rafale aircrafts followed each and every step. And they are saying it back to the Supreme Court. They are not doing it in a press conference. That has already been done by numerous amount of ministers, right from the BJP national president to the finance minister to the defense minister. This time, this is a 9-page reply
16 pages
to the Supreme Court from the government. And these two, yeah.
There are about 16 pages in all, and I'm just going to try and open it here.
Yeah, I was told
there are 16 pages in all. Aishwarya, will try and get Nalini as well. 5 pages dedicated to offsets, the Rafale offsets. And as far as the Rafale offsets are concerned, the government has said that, they go on to talk about how the offsets, were discussed. And the following details are already included in another paper separately being provided, giving details of steps in decision making. So, even as far as the offsets are concerned, the government is citing procedure on how Reliance was chosen. There's also a PIB notice that has been attached to show how this was a conspiracy to somehow drag in government into the Reliance process.
Yeah. No, that's true, Niranjan, because government was facing a lot of flack. The kind of questions which were being raised by the Congress National President Rahul Gandhi more or less every day. Wherever he's doing these press conferences, these rallies, he's raising this question of Rafale. And he says, according to the opposition, there is gross misconduct. So that is something which the government in this reply back to the apex court says there was no misconduct whatsoever. Every process was followed at every step. Every detail was looked into, whether it is the DPP, whether it is the DAC or it is the SQR. The complete process was followed from day one for the procurement of Rafale aircraft. But there is certain information which, according to the government, cannot be given out, and that's exactly what they were saying. And whenever they said that complete information cannot be given out because this is regarding the defense procurement. And there are certain agencies working, certain international agencies working which would want to know the specific details of the aircraft which we are procuring, and that is something which the government would not want to say, keeping in mind the national security, and the opposition was not ready to understand. They said there is gross financial misconduct, and now when the government is saying it back to the apex court,
we have the full
it is now for the opposition
the full
to
offsets clause is
introspect
with
where they really went wrong.
Republic TV, the first channel to access the full affidavit. The full affidavit is with us. This is the full affidavit of the government as far as the Rafale deal is concerned. We have a copy of that. I'm going to read out the offsets portion. This portion says that it's a copy for the petitioner's offsets. The Honorable Supreme Court of India, in its order dated 31st of October, has also mentioned that further details that could legitimately come in the public domain with regard to the induction of the Indian offset partner be furnished to the councils as well as petitioners. The following details included in another paper separately being provided, giving details of the steps in the decision-making process leading to the award of 36 Rafale fighter aircraft order. And the government has gone on to, give the full details of the procedure as per the DPP, talking about how these were laid down rules laid down in 2005, between 2005 and 2013. So twice the government has gone on to quote what the UPA had brought in regarding the DPP. I think Majid Memon is joining us on the phone line. Mr. Memon, we've accessed the government's affidavit on Rafale. It's bad news for the opposition because the government has gone on to quote due procedure that was followed. These were procedures that were set in by the UPA government in between the years 2005 and 2013.
Yes.
Mr. Memon. Sir,
yes, I'm hearing you.
Yeah, we've accessed the government affidavit on Rafale. I have it in my hand. In fact, the government has gone on to, quote the rule book, show the rule book to the opposition, saying that it was you who set up the rules in 2013. And as far as Reliance is concerned, I think they've put out a detailed statement on how they had no role to play in it. But the fact is, it's reached the Supreme Court. Seems like the opposition case has weakened with the response that was given.
You see, this affidavit may be, revealing or explaining a certain aspect of Rafale which is not in public interest. What is in public interest and for which there is so much of noise, not only by political parties, but the whole as such. You see, the entire people of this country would want to know the pricing. 500 crore worth property is bought for 1600 crore. What is the explanation? Number one, and number two, that why it was not given to HL, who was natural recipient of this particular deal. You see, these are the two questions for which let the government give a satisfactory answer to Supreme Court, and the things will come out very soon. We are not concerned about the technicalities and about the formalities and the procedure. Nobody is questioning on that. Please understand, let the Prime Minister and the Defence Minister make a note of two blunt points. Number one is why the price is threefold paid. It is taxpayers' money, number one. And number two, why Anil Ambani was favored, who did not have even one screw made of the aircraft, who was given such a big job. And he had opened the company only 10 days before. These are the questions which are creating great suspicion about the corruptibility, about the kickoff, about the mess that has been made.
Yeah, but we'll have to wait and watch, because going by the explanation that has been given by the government, Mr. Memon, seems like, at least they've tried to put out the impression that they've gone by the rule book. I'm going to read out for our viewers, and I know that you've just perhaps tuning in and getting details of the government affidavit. But I just want to tell you, particularly on the question of the offset contracts in 36 Rafale IGA, the government has said that the two offset contracts with Dassault Aviation and the French industrial suppliers and weapon package respectively have a period of performance comprising 7 years, and they've gone on to detail the entire, decision-making process. And, in one of the points, they've also mentioned how the government of India conveyed to the government of France that in view of the critical operational necessity for multi-role combat aircraft, the government would like to acquire these 36 jets in flyaway condition. But I think, the biggest news point that we are taking away from this is that, Mr. Memon, that they went by the rules that were set in motion by the UPA government in 2013. Now, it all depends on what the court says next. It all completely depends on what the court says next, Mr. Memon.
Exactly. See, the court is gradually reaching the point where the truth would stand exposed. These are all preparatory steps. The fundamental questions are that, number one, what is the price paid? Money paid for the whole deal. And number two, why Anil Ambani in preference to HL? These are the two questions. Please ask them if their affidavit can explain anything.
Yeah, okay. At this point, we'll leave it at that for now. Mr. Memon, what we'll do is we'll go through all these documents in much more detail, and we'll come back to you. And this is likely to be the big story as well, as the government has responded on Rafale. The affidavit has been filed in Supreme Court. Republic TV has the full copy that has been shared with the petitioners. The government said put out as much details as you can, or as you can possibly share with the petitioners. And the first copy is on Republic. Everybody's scrambling to get bits and pieces of this. We have the full affidavit with us. We'll also try and get Nalini and Aishwarya live. Nalini, if you're live with us, can you hear me, Nalini? Okay, Aishwarya, I'll come to you, Aishwarya. But, okay, we seem to have lost the phone line with Aishwarya as well. But this is the first copy. On the point of offsets, the government has made several pointers, but they've also detailed the process followed for discharge of offset obligations. I'm going to try and read out from this because it gives you an idea of the government's line of response, completely technical response by the government. The process followed for discharge of offset obligations. The vendor of the equipment will be responsible for fulfillment of offset obligations. The vendor of the equipment, so they put the onus on Dassault, saying that offset obligations are to be discharged within the period of performance of the offset contract. The vendor may also allow his Tier 1 sub-vendors to discharge offset obligations to the extent of work share by value in the main procurement contract on behalf of the vendor. A Tier 1 sub-vendor is one who is directly supplying equipment or services to the platform under procurement. Offset obligations are undertaken by vendors or sub-vendors through Indian enterprises and institutions, establishments engaged in the manufacture of eligible products or provision of eligible services who are referred to as Indian offset partner. The Indian offset partner shall comply with guidelines, licensing requirements stipulated by Department of Industrial Policy and Promotion. Both the vendor and Tier 1 sub-vendors are free to choose. Both the vendor, I think the key point here is both the vendor, in this case Dassault, and Tier 1 sub-vendors are free to choose or select any offset partner, provided the IOP has not been barred from doing business by the MOD. So I think that's a big news point, Aishwarya. The government has said, as long as the vendor, in this case Dassault Aviation, and their sub-vendors can choose Indian offset partner, provided the Indian offset partner is not barred from doing business from the MOD. So I think technically the government is trying to say it's okay as long as Dassault does business with Reliance, as long as Reliance is not barred by the Ministry of Defence, which is a technical argument which may go which goes in favor of the government if that's what the rules, set up by the UPA government say. Aishwarya.
Niranjan, the opposition needs to understand what else do they want. Yes. The government today, in their reply to the Apex Court, has made it apparently very clear that they not only went by the rule book, at every check, at every turn, they went keeping in mind the rule book in place. Do they, or are they saying that they never wanted the procurement to happen because this was strengthening the Indian national interest? What else do they want? If you read para number 21, Niranjan, it says that it went according to SQR, DAC, CNC, CFA, which is the Defence Procurement Procedures, integral part of the competent financial authority. So they went through 5 checks. 5 checks were gone through, and all of these 5 checks were made during 2005 and 2013. That is under UPA 1 and UPA 2. So what essentially the Congress National President is saying that all the checks and balances which were created when his party was in the ruling were wrong. That if the present government has gone through all of those rulings, all of those checks and turns which were created by his party when they were ruling India, when they were in power, were wrong. That if the present government has gone through those checks.
Aishwarya, sorry to interrupt you there. I think we have Amit Walia on the phone line. Amit Mandya, we've accessed the government's Rafale affidavit, where the government has, essentially what they've done is they've quoted the rule book, and they have shown the rule book to the UPA, because I think most of these rules were brought in during the UPA era between 2005 and 2013. So what's the strategy? Strategy seems to be that, we are doing exactly what you had laid down. So you've gone by a technical argument, but will it hold in court?
Well, there's no strategy. Essentially, what we have told the court is the truth and truth alone. And we've all along been saying that there has been no violation whatsoever in the process or on negotiations. There have been several comments both by the French government, French president, Indian government, Indian defense minister, Indian finance minister on the pricing of the Rafale jet, on the process that was being followed. Yet there was a concerted attempt by the Congress, in particular, to muddy waters as far as Rafale was concerned. They wanted to make India's national security a matter of politics, and that is why they went about Rafale the way they did, and charge was led by no other than Rahul Gandhi himself. The question, therefore, now must be squarely asked of the Congress party, that why were they playing with India's national security? What is it that they knew or they wanted to know, and for what end that was not already in the public domain? And therefore, these questions will have to be asked of the Congress party, and they will have to be asked whose interests they were serving by asking these questions. Now that the affidavit has been filed in the Supreme Court, the rule book has been followed to the T, has become quite evident. And therefore, let's go back to the basics and say whether the opposition party in India is as responsible as it should be.
Okay, Amit Malviya, thank you for joining us, because this is likely to become controversial, because the government has, dug its heels in as far as the Rafale deal is concerned, saying that we've gone completely by the rule book, a complete technical argument given in court as far as the Rafale affidavit is concerned. We've accessed the 16-page affidavit. All the pages are on Republic, story broken on Republic. We're getting into full details, including key excerpts and the government's argument. Taking a short break, we'll be back with the breaking news updates.